Hey there, this is Matt with State of Flux here to talk to you about my top 10 picks for the first season of Smallville. Smallville was a really good show, and its first season especially so. I really like how it shows how great things come from small beginnings. The relationship between Clark and his parents especially, and Lex Luthor and his friends Chloe and Pete, and his budding romance with Lana, allows you to see something in Clark Kent that you've never really seen before. The real human side of him. He never is super in this, he's always just man, and the moments that you get to see him blossom forward are explored. And I think the biggest problem with Smallville as a whole is it was designed in a time period of television where there's an awful lot of filler episodes. And the fillers don't always help the show. They kind of are the ones that you can point at to bring the show down. But each season has about 8 episodes that are genuinely fantastic pieces of television of the era. And really good Superman storytelling, especially young Superman storytelling. So I'm going to give you my picks for the top 10 episodes of Smallville, starting with number 10. 10's best, the 10 spot, it goes to Craving. Craving is an Amy Adams-driven episode, and it's kind of remarkable only because of her. It's not a particularly well-written one. In fact, it hasn't aged entirely well. There are readings of it that are pretty questionable, but it's about a bigger girl played by Amy Adams who starts drinking this special shake that she makes that is infused with meteor rock, and that gets her to trim down. But as she trims and trims and trims, she starts craving fat, and she starts looking to others to try and consume them. She is what makes it work. Were it not for her strong performance, and I even felt this back in the day when I first watched it, this thing would fall apart. But she completely sells this story, and that is what makes this one an honorable mention in the 10 spot. The other honorable mention is my number 9 pick, Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is the second half of the first episode of the show, but is really only successful because of its villain. And unlike the Amy Adams Craving episode, Metamorphosis's villain is good because we get to revisit him later in a really compelling episode, if not the best episode of the series. And so seeing how this begins, again, great things come from small beginnings. We get to see how that story will play out later, and it's really from that episode that this one gets bolstered up higher. The remaining 8 that I'm going to give you are all genuinely good episodes, and I think if I were to construct a season of Smallville myself, I would probably pick these kind of stories as the ones to move the needle along, bit by bit. In the number 8 spot, we have Drone. Drone is a neat one where Clark goes up against a threat that is trying to pick off people that are trying to run for class presidency. And he gets sort of elected into this by Pete, and on a campaign of the Man of Tomorrow, which I thought was a pretty cute little nod to the future of Superman. But he's up against this person who's taking out their rivals, and doing so by sending flocks of bees their way. And you have the fun, pulpy, comic booky nature of a villain, which I really like. And this is honestly something that I think more comic book movies could do, is they don't make up villains. And like, they keep recycling the villains from before. Sometimes in the case of Batman, we've seen different iterations of the same character over and over and over again, and it's tiring. And I like that Smallville, especially in the first couple of years, gave you unique individual villains that didn't have basis in the comic books. And this one is a good example of that. This is a wickedly neat kind of villain, a threat that can command drones of bees to do their bidding, and that is really kind of fun. I also like how Clark's character interplays with other people in this episode, as you see him begin to reflect on the platform of what it means to be at the center of attention and the power your words have to inspire others. This is our first harsh lesson in that Chloe must teach him. In the number 7 spot, we have Crush. This one is fantastically performed by Adam Brody. Adam Brody plays the quote-unquote villain of this episode. He definitely lands super villainous, but this one goes hard. It kills one of the core, secondary characters of this show, and you see the relationships of Clark and Chloe and Lana and Whitney and all that stuff examined further with this really, really interesting, complex villain in Adam Brody, a man who's lost the use of his hands, Doctor Strange style, and has found something within himself that can get back at his villains. A super cool episode. The number 6 spot is probably the horniest episode of this bunch, which is Nicodemus. Nicodemus has a flower blossom that sprays out a little powder or aura or whatever it is that gets people to act youthful, which means they engage with their inner aggression and inner sexuality, and we get to see that from characters we would not traditionally see that from. We get to see Jonathan Kent lose it. We get to see Lana become much more frisky, for want of a better word. But this one, when you're watching a teen show, especially as a teen, really taps into something that you can relate to. You're dealing with all this anguish and aggression and like pent-up sexual frustration, and this show kind of releases all of that for you. It's a pretty solid, fun episode. The next 5 are like genuinely great episodes of this show, and some of them might even land in my top 10 of the entire series, which I will give to you once I'm concluded with my recap of all 10 seasons. But in the number 5 spot, we have Tempest, the season finale. Tempest brings all the storylines that we've brought together from the first 22 episodes and culminates it in this kind of Wizard of Oz moment where Clark is at the prom, but is he there with the right girl? Whitney is leaving the show for quote-unquote greener pastures, and we don't really know where his truth in his future lay. We have somebody who is looking to discover truths about Clark and what his parents are willing to do to hide that. All while a wicked storm comes through and is ready to tear everything apart, just as Lionel Luthor has come through town and has laid everybody off. And so this storm is coming from a financial, fiscal sense and a very real one, ending with a great tornado. It's a really good season finale with a killer cliffhanger. The number 4 spot goes to Jitters. Jitters is the mid-season kind of big action set piece where you have a person who gets these horrible tremors or jitters that can absolutely shake a foundation to its core, and he is convinced that LexCorp did this to him and nobody will believe him, so he tries to get people on board. Well, Clark has to protect the students when they're there on a field trip. And it goes big, it goes hard, and this is like the example of how great the scope of this show was, especially in its early seasons where television never really got this big. Sure, you had like larger-than-life television series in like Star Trek and Buffy and stuff like that, but this one had a filmic sense that was kind of elevated beyond those in a budget that was able to handle it. Not to say that this episode is better than anything that the other two put on, but it just shows you like how cinematic this series was trying to be. In the number 3 spot is the pilot. The pilot is one that has a great, gripping first scene where the meteors come crashing down and you see what it really means when Clark arrives in Smallville and how that affects everybody. And then throughout the show, you kind of get to know this really nice dude in Clark Kent, who is played so well by Tom Welling, who just has this curious nature of trying to figure things out, and that reads across on his face, not in a dim way or anything like that, but in the sense of like he's trying to learn and understand. He is that alien that is trying to figure it all out, as you kind of feel like when you're navigating high school, and you live next door to the girl of your dreams. This is a really good first episode, and I like how it explores Clark and Lana and Lex's relationship and how the Kents really form the foundation of love and kindness that becomes Superman in the future. My number 2 spot is Leech, where through a thrilling accident, this nothing kid is gifted Clark's powers, and Clark is gifted the power of not being able to do anything. And it's a gift for both of them until both of them realize the true weakness of not being themselves. And how absolute power can corrupt absolutely, especially when your parents aren't Jonathan and Martha Kent, and your dad is an abusive prick. What is that going to do to change you in your core? Leech really explores that, and you see the selflessness of and heroism of Clark as he realizes that he may have to sacrifice all to stop this man who he is powerless against. And it's incredibly well written, insanely well acted by Sean Ashmore, who would have gone on or had been presently playing Iceman in the X-Men movies. He is super, super great in this episode, and his twin brother, fun fact, will show up in this episode as Jimmy Olsen, and he makes for a really good Jimmy Olsen. But the best episode of Season 1, I kind of think, without question, is Hourglass. Hourglass is one of the best episodes of any form of Superman media. When I think of Superman, I think of this episode. It has the great flashback moments where they meet a woman who's been blinded since the meteor event, and she is able to get glimpses of people's future, and when she looks into Clark's, she sees him alone amongst a world that is reeling in pain, and he's there to shine a light on the hope and beacon that he is. He will be the man of tomorrow, and he will usher them into the light. Meanwhile, when she touches Lex, she sees one of the most horrifying visions anybody could see, and how that is explored through these characters. The B storyline is also that, that's I guess kind of the B storyline. Somebody else at her old folks' home is a former serial killer who got away with it. And when he is imbued with the meteor rock to become young and youthful, he goes out and tries to take out people that had put him in prison years prior. And that is a fascinating, thrilling storyline, and how he eventually, all paths lead to the Kents, and that makes for something really interesting and compelling. This episode has true weight of drama and fear in it. It is scary, it is hopeful, it is inspiring, and it is chilling when it needs to be. This is one of the great pieces of Superman media. So there you have it. That's my top 10 in ascending order. We have Craving, Metamorphosis, Drone, Crush, Nicodemus, Tempest, Jitters, Pilot, Leech, and Hourglass. What are your favorite episodes of the first season of Smallville? Did I miss any that you might absolutely love? Let me know about them in the comments down below, and in about a month's time or so, I should have a review up for Season 2 of Smallville. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, and oh, by the way, I have also just started a TikTok. I can link you down to my TikTok down below as well, so check that out, and please follow me there. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Peace.